we are here to talk about leadership roles in embedding DEI in HR, and we are looking to speak to both stakeholders and HR professionals on how they can introduce into their company policy culture by not just writing it as a form of text for people to read, but also something that they can practice and every employee, even future employees, get to understand, and even customers and competitors and the general market can get to see that this company is embedding DEI and it is part of their, let's say, company DNA.
Gift and then general viewers. My name is Chimwanya Ufodike. I currently work as the Chief Growth Officer at Cello. So Cello is a company that pushes forward SaaS solutions to enable companies run their operations more effectively. Before now, I've had leadership positions all my life. Started out in banking, I went into my first IT company, and then done functions in logistics, planning, and integration as well. So that has led me to my current role as the Chief Growth Officer at Cloud. So that's who I am in a nutshell. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So let's move right to our question. So we want to know how HR leaders can ensure that DEI is not just a policy, but is also a core part of company culture, and also how you think that they can make it part of their culture that even the markets, including customers and competitors and the general public, can see that these people are embedding DEI into their work process and work relationships.
That's a great question. So the first thing is that leaders must, as a necessity, lead by example. What does leading by example mean? So leadership must first of all be seen to champion DEI initiatives by demonstrating commitment through action and not just words. So when a leader is talking about what do you do? So when you start up your company or when you get to a leadership position, what do you do? Okay, number one, I think, is you have to embed DEI in your core values. So how do you do that? By integrating DEI into the company's mission, the company's vision, and its values, and ensuring it's reflected in every aspect of operations. And then what next? There has to be continuous education. You have to provide regular training and workshops to employees at all levels to foster awareness and understanding of DEI. And that brings you to accountability. So DEI goals must be measurable. Okay, they have to be measurable, and leaders and teams have to be held accountable for whatever progress or lack of progress that their team is making. Okay, and then as a company, as a leader, the same way you have your KPIs for whatever functions you run, you also have to have KPIs for your expected DEI results. Okay, and then with all of that, you can see that it's now easier to create employee involvement. So whether they are resource groups, ERGs, or DI committees that enable employees, to be shaped into driving the initiatives that the company has set up for their DEI initiatives. And then, of course, there must be inclusive communication. So you have to ensure that all internal and external communications reflect the company's commitment to DEI. So these are a few things that I believe if a company does, then it translates from just talking about DEI to an action. You understand? So those are my beliefs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So we see that sometimes DI can be a challenge, especially when it comes to um, policy making. So we want to just know if you can share any of these challenges that you have seen from your experience or your years of leadership experience, and how other leaders who are facing these particular challenges can address them.
I think really the main challenge that any leader will have in terms of facing DEI, number one on the top of my list from my own experiences is unconscious bias. You might be biased in a way, in a certain way, but you really don't know that you have these feelings, you understand, until maybe somebody comes in and looks at your choice of hires, the way you run your operations, and then you can now, when it's set up before you, that's when you can now see that there's an unconscious bias. Okay. And what can you do? You can start implementing, bias training and using tools, like blind recruitment to minimize bias and hiring. Like I said, sometimes you hire people, when you look at a CV, for example, you have a name. You have a name. So whether it's a cultural bias or tribal bias or gender bias, whatever it is, okay, I remember that in the last, so I'll give you an example. The last hire we had in Cloud Only. First of all, CVs these days, they're not, people don't put their ages on their CVs. I don't also encourage people to put their, like their states of origin and stuff like that. Most times also, we don't encourage them to put their gender on it. Okay. I mean, sometimes, we're in Nigeria, so there's some names that you see, like your name now. Gift or Chidema, somebody will see the name and say, okay, this is a female, but we try as much as possible to hire blindly. You understand? So that removes the unconscious bias. There's also that level of resistance to change in leadership. You understand? Leaders want to do things a certain way. They resist that change. So that's why it's important for open communication. There has to be a why. There has to be a why behind all your DEI initiatives. And that why must emphasize the business value and the moral case for inclusion. If you're not doing that and asking yourself the why and being able to convince yourself about that why, that will create a challenge for you. All right. And then the other thing is that there's also a lack of data within companies. You understand? People really don't look at the demographics of their hire. They don't look at demographics of the people who work for them. So personally, for me, both consciously and unconsciously, I always look at the people who work for me. For example, in a senior management team, I've already raised that issue because in the entire senior management team, we don't have a female person working for us in our senior management team. All right. So why? Why don't we have a female person working as senior? There are other females who have proven themselves, okay, to show that they can perform and stuff like that. I mean, in your team, for example, Gift, we have Teresa in quality control. We have Chioma and all of that. And I'm like, why are they not part of the senior management team? So these are the kind of things, like I said, you have to constantly look at data before you, and then and then try to use that to overcome the challenges that you have. And then there's this one size fits all policy. Okay, so you have to be able to customize policies to address the unique needs of diverse employee groups. You understand? So you have to have things like flexible work arrangements for working parents, or you have to accommodate their religious what do you call it, situations and stuff like that. Okay, and then there's also inconsistent implementation. So you have to always ensure that policies are applied uniformly across all levels of the organization. Okay, and there have to be clear guidelines and oversight functions for people at all levels who are going to be able to help you achieve your DI aims. So that's it.
Okay, so thank you very much for that response. Personally like the fact of including females in senior roles. It's also part of like equity and equality in workplaces. So I want to move now to when it comes to compensation and fair compensation and pay equity. So I'm going to compound my question. I just want to know, as a leader, how do you encourage or how do you tell other leaders that they can, or decision makers, that they can actually be more inclusive with both their hiring process, pay equity, and also include fair compensation in payroll?
Well, number one for me is for you to be able to achieve that, buy Cloud Only. Okay, just buy Cloud Only, because Cloud Only, the way it's designed, has a lot of analytics. Those analytics shows you people who work for you by gender, what departments they are in, how much they are earning, what job functions they have, and stuff like that. You understand? Number one is that if you're a leader, I'll tell you to, yes, go ahead and buy a tool like Cloud Only, because all the data that you want to look at is set before you. Traditionally, what should you do? Number one is that you must be able to conduct pay audits, okay? Which means what's a pay audit? Basically, regularly review compensation data and identify and address disparities based on gender or other demographics that you guys choose. And like I said, this data is available to you on on cloud only. And then your pay structure must be transparent. You have to be able to implement clear, standardized pay scales and criteria for promotions and reduce subjectivity. Okay. Again, like I said, I'm always going back to cloud only because our the pay structure in cloud only does this for you as well. And then there's benchmarking. Okay, what does benchmarking mean from my own perspective? It means that you should be able to compare competition practices with industry standards to ensure competitiveness and fairness. So for every industry, there must be benchmarking. People have to say, what do we do for this case of individuals and stuff like that, okay? And then if there's any disparity, that disparity must be addressed proactively, okay? So at any point where gaps are identified, you have to take immediate steps to rectify them, such as adjusting salaries or providing back pay and stuff like that. Okay. And then what other things? There has to be inclusive benefits. Okay. Inclusive benefits that cater to diverse needs. Okay. Such as parental leave, mental health support, childcare assistance for nursing mothers, and stuff like that. So for me, those are the ways you can close that gap and really ensure that the gap doesn't even exist in the first place. Because why should the gap exist? I mean, you're doing the same amount of work that any other person in your department is doing at your level is doing, and you might actually be doing more work than that person. So, but like I said, one stop, buy cloud only. It automates all of this for you. You don't have to run up and down, helter skelter, trying to make sure that everything is equal. It equalizes all of that for you. So that's my own advice to any leader in the industry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, now that we've discussed all this, maybe certain people or leaders or professionals might be thinking, so what is the end goal? Can it drive for the company?
Oh, there are plenty of benefits. Plenty of benefits. You understand? So I can tell you, for example, that in Cloud only, okay, we have a staff who's a female. Well, there are two people actually. Two of them have health issues that traditionally would not allow them to do certain kinds of to function in certain departments. And when that's in Cello, not in Cloud only, in Cello, as a company, not in the product unit, but as a company. And then when we found out that that they had these issues, what did we do? We assigned them to specific roles that could help them work within the timelines. And I can tell you, Gift, that those two females are they are two of the highest result oriented people we have in Seattle today. The amount of output they have for us is incredible. There is also a male who works for Cello. His wife has a job elsewhere, and they just recently had twins. But in that period that we gave him that support, the amount of output that he gave us back was incredible. Now that's a guy looking after baby, looking after twins. You understand? And his output is incredible. You understand? Where you've used an equitable measure and inclusive system to accommodate people in your office, increase. You have to be able to set public targets to increase representation of any gender, within a given period. Okay. And then also start partnering with organizations who understand these DI things. You understand? And start implementing mentorship programs to support whoever it is. I mean, there are not plenty of women in tech, for example. So we have to have these mentorship programs support women in tech. You understand? And then we also have to learn how to share progress updates with the entire company so everybody knows where we are driving towards and stuff like that. And then as a result, the company will not only meet these goals, but it will also see improved team collaborations and innovations. You understand? So that's what I think. So I've given you examples of what we have done as a company, and then further ideas of what any other person can do to be able to meet up their DEI goal.
Okay, thank you so much. So we want to move now to the technology aspects, scaling HR performance with technology while still prioritizing DEI. So you've answered some of our questions already, including how stakeholders or teams can ensure, that payroll and other benefits are structured in a way that supports DEI initiatives, and where you mentioned using Cloudinly, because Cloudinly shows you all these things. Once you perform a pay audit, you get to see how employees are compensated, if it's equal or if it's fair. So I want to move now to how you think that HR leaders, especially, can use technology to make hiring and promotions fair and more transparent. So some companies or certain HR leaders don't know yet that you can use technology to ease hiring process one, and also promotion among their teams, and most importantly, even make it fair and transparent. So we want to talk to these leaders or these teams that don't use technology yet in their process.
Well, again, in today's age and time, if you're not yet using technology for your hiring, then you're still what do you call it? You're a dinosaur, and very soon you go extinct. Okay, so it's important to understand the power of AI. AI power recruitment tools can screen your resumes. I have spoken before about blind hire. Now, the main essence of blind hire is to use an AI powered recruitment tool. They screen resumes and identify candidates based on skill and experience. So that reduces your unconscious bias. So it's important to have this AI powered recruitment tool. You understand? And that keys into what I've always spoken about, data analytics. Okay, so for Cloudinly, for example, our ATS, we have an ATS tool that's coming on board real soon. Okay, so that ATS will also help you to track hiring and promotion metrics. You understand? So that it will help you identify patterns of bias and ensure equitable opportunity. All right. So it's important to have these data analytics in place, and then also to establish transparent platform. So basically, by implementing systems where employees can view job openings, promotion or promotion criteria, and career progression paths. These platforms must be established. They must be transparent. It must be open for all, regardless of your gender or your position in life. And then you have to have a feedback mechanism. I can't mention this enough. Okay. And then this feedback mechanism should be technology driven. Why? Because it's the only way you can collect anonymous feedback from employees about hiring, promotion processes, and stuff like that. And then these other things can also do skill assessments for you. And this is AI as well. This is technology. And like I said, technology is blind. It doesn't know, who anybody is. So when you're doing skill assessment, you're not assessing your skill based on that you're a female or you're a male. Okay? It assesses you objectively based on your job related skills, your job output, and your adherence to KPIs. So these are ways that technology can help someone drive all of these things. And I keep saying that with Cloudinly, most of these things are already in place in Cloudinly. You understand? So all you need to do is to set up your company at inception, and then let Cloudinly automatically run your appraisals for you, determine who's meant to be promoted based on KPIs met, and all of that. All of that is already embedded in this single product. So why beat around the bush? If anybody is serious about DEI, then the person should be signed up to Cloudinly at this point.
Okay, thank you, sir. So now that a lot of companies are moving towards a remote or a hybrid workforce, although there are a lot of teams that still don't believe in remote work, maybe because they feel like teams will not perform good, or they don't know how to maintain their policy when they want to move into a remote or a hybrid workforce, especially maybe because they've been operating or they are used to operating in that particular way. So now we want to focus on that remote and hybrid workforce for companies who are already operating remotely or in a hybrid form, or are looking to maybe move into a hybrid format for maybe because of the economy, and they want to help employees reduce the amount of money they spend on transportation to work. So now, how do you think that technology can help maintain this inclusive work environment? And we just want to also highlight a bit on other work policies, even if it's not just related to DEI or equity. So we just want to know, how do you think that technology can help these teams that are already remote or in a hybrid way, or are looking to move into a hybrid or remote form, to maintain inclusive work environments and also other work cultures and policies?
I think that's probably the easiest one. Okay. So first of all is that you have to have virtual collaboration tools. Okay. On platforms like Slack, which you know that we use a lot at in Cello, Microsoft Teams, Zoom. What does this help you do? It helps you ensure that all employees, regardless of their location, can participate equally. That's number one. Then your scheduling is important, okay, because You know that we as a company, we have people who live in North America, who live in Europe, who live in Nigeria, all parts of Nigeria, you understand, who do all sorts of things. So there has to be inclusive scheduling, okay? There are tools also that enable you to do this scheduling. Why is it important? So because you want to accommodate people in different time zones and personal commitments. You understand? So this is what these things do for you. And then your digital ERGs, okay? You have to create virtual spaces for employees, so for resource groups to connect and share experiences, okay? And then increase the amount of accessibility features you have in your company, okay? How do you do that? Again, by technology. So you have to ensure that all technology platforms are accessible to employees with disabilities or non-disabilities, things like screen readers, captioning. There are some meetings when you get to, and somebody like our CTO will tell you to increase your screen so that so that it becomes legible to him and stuff like that. So these tools, these accessibility features must be in place. And then there has to be regular check-in. Okay, you have to check in with your staff. Okay, so how do you do that? There are HR software to track employee engagement and well-being. Okay, to ensure that remote workers feel supported at all times. Okay, so for me, these are little ways in which any organization that's serious about working remotely will be able to schedule work time to suit everybody and make sure that everybody gives his or her best at work.
It's like any other advice or tip you want to leave for them.
Yeah, well, for me, benefits must be customizable. Okay, you have to be able to offer flexible benefit packages that cater to diverse needs. Okay, like mentioned mental health support before, fertility treatments for women who are trying to have babies. Okay, student loan repayments for fresh hires who are out of school and have a loan they've taken. Okay, there has to be equitable compensation, like I said before. Um, you have to be able to regularly audit your payroll data. Okay, transparent policies. I've mentioned that before as well. Basically, like your leave policies, they also have to be inclusive. Okay, it's not only maternity leave that you be able to give. You should be able to give paternity leave. You understand? So and then feedback is, like I said, feedback is very key in everything we do concerning DEI or any other policy that you have. Okay. And then what else can they do? They can integrate their DEI policies into as a business strategy. I've mentioned it before. In doing this, you have to be able to measure the impact it has on your total output. Okay. And then of course you have to invest a lot in leadership training so that your leaders understand what you're talking about, and then expand your communication progress so that it's all inclusive. It includes all these things, you understand? And then every company should learn how to stay adaptable. You have to learn how to adapt, by continuously evaluating and adjusting your DI strategies to meet evolving needs of the workforce and the business. So those are the things I think. But most importantly, everybody has to learn how to be authentic, how to use data, how to be concise. Okay, and then so basically that's what I think.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me.